Arctic was once considered one of the most pristine and untouched regions on Earth. Vast stretches of white ice extended to the horizon, forming the frozen kingdom of polar bears. For thousands of years, these powerful predators adapted perfectly to this harsh environment. They relied on thick sea ice to hunt seals, rest, and raise their cubs. Today, that picture is changing at an unprecedented pace. Rising global temperatures cause sea ice to melt earlier in spring and freeze later in winter. Shrinking ice means shrinking hunting grounds for polar bears. As their habitat becomes disrupted, new dangers begin to emerge. Among them is a hidden threat that receives far less attention than climate change. It is known as ghost nets, abandoned fishing nets drifting through the icy ocean. Ghost nets are fishing gears that are lost or discarded at sea, but continue drifting for years. They are made from durable plastic materials that barely break down in nature. In the freezing waters of the Arctic Ocean, these nets become silent traps. They do not discriminate, they do not stop, and they never grow tired. Fish, seals, seabirds, and many other marine creatures can become entangled and slowly die. As the ice melts, stronger currents carry these nets farther north. They become tangled in floating ice or sink to the seabed, only to resurface when the ice melts again. Their presence is becoming increasingly common in the fragile habitat of polar bears. As polar bears are forced to swim longer distances in search of food, the risk of encountering these traps rises. Once entangled, their fight for survival becomes more brutal than ever. Imagine a polar bear swimming through freezing waters in search of seals. It has already traveled farther than usual because the familiar ice has disappeared. Its large body makes it a strong swimmer, but also more vulnerable to drifting debris. In the murky water, a nearly invisible net floats silently. With one powerful stroke, nylon strands tighten around its front leg. The more it struggles, the tighter the net wraps around its neck and torso. A bear's strength can break ice, but it cannot easily tear through these resilient synthetic fibers. After hours of struggling, it may become exhausted in the vast ocean. If it manages to escape, deep wounds and infections may remain. If it does not, the lifeless trap will silently claim another life already burdened by environmental stress. When a polar bear becomes entangled and injured, the impact goes beyond that one animal. If the victim is a mother, her cubs, entirely dependent on her milk and protection, may face starvation. Cub survival rates are already low under current melting conditions. The loss of one adult accelerates the decline of the entire population. Polar bears reproduce slowly, typically giving birth to only 1 or 2 cubs at a time. Each lost life, therefore, has long-term consequences for the species' future. Ghost nets also reduce the availability of prey. Seals trapped and killed disrupt the delicate balance of the food chain. An ecosystem already weakened by climate change faces even greater pressure. This shows that the problem is not an isolated accident, but a dangerous cycle tightening around the Arctic. The rise of ghost nets is not accidental. Global fishing industries have expanded rapidly over recent decades. Millions of tons of fishing gear are deployed into the oceans each year. During operations, some equipment is lost due to storms, collisions, or damage. Other gear is abandoned because recovery costs are too high. Made from synthetic plastics, these nets can persist in the ocean for decades. Climate change is melting sea ice, opening new shipping routes and fishing grounds in the Arctic. This means human activities are pushing deeper into polar bear habitats. As vessel traffic increases, so does the likelihood of lost gear and marine debris. From a remote wilderness, the Arctic is gradually becoming a crossroads between fragile nature and human impact. Although ghost nets originate from human activity, humans also hold the power to change the situation. International organizations are launching campaigns to retrieve abandoned fishing gear from the ocean. Tracking technology and gear marking systems help reduce losses during fishing operations. Some countries have implemented stricter regulations on plastic waste and fishing equipment management. Scientists are developing biodegradable materials that can naturally break down over time. At the same time, reducing greenhouse gas emissions remains essential to slowing ice melt. Protecting polar bears is not only about saving an iconic species. It is about preserving the balance of the entire Arctic ecosystem. Every small action, from responsible consumption to supporting ocean protection policies, contributes to meaningful change. The future of polar bears in a melting Arctic depends on the choices we make today.